We still got a little energy.
Mhm.
I love it. Well, welcome back, everybody. Episode 72, Monday night for the Leonis support. JB and I back together again for another update. We've not gotten any news yet, but plenty to talk about. Actually, a lot to talk about. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we'll say a quick hello. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Obviously you posted a community update there over the weekends. We got together for the first time on Saturday, which was a lot of fun. It was long overdue. We've been talking about it since basically the first time that we streamed together. It was just randomly found out that we lived just a stone's throw away pretty much from each other. So had a really good time. Played some games, had some drinks and food, and yeah, it was has me excited to come on here and talk about it again this week.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to do something over the summer, go catch a baseball game or hit up a brewery or something, and never came to happen. But hopefully the first of many. And yeah, it was fun. There was like a PC cafe nearby, so what better spot for a couple of gamers to like get together than go to this spot? And actually, really nice. Like they have a little kitchen area. Honestly, they're like the bar is set up really nice, and yeah, like what 30 different PCs, a bunch of arcade games. If anybody wanted a little tattoo, they get a tattoo parlor right there. So don't lose any bets while
I
you're
know.
there. But it was
It was
fun.
really
Yeah,
interesting, like cool spot.
it was. How about the rest of the weekend?
But yeah, I'm
Oh,
before
good.
we get too deep here, I am noticing kind of the video audio lag
Oh,
again here, and I think some folks in chat are seeing it also.
did they? Okay,
I
okay.
don't know, maybe if there's a couple things that to close down or something
I
potentially, or
think there is. Give me just a second, guys. Hopefully that does it. I don't want to end stream and restart because that'll make everyone, it'll kick everyone out of the pre-made video. Hopefully that's better though. I just closed two things that normally lag my computer just a little bit. So an Excel sheet and a Windows Media. But hopefully that's better. Let us know in the next couple seconds, but we'll keep the conversation flowing just until we hear someone else. Or JB, if you notice it, obviously let me know too. But yeah, how's the weekend?
it seems to
Oh,
be getting a little bit better.
good, 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 good.
Yeah, the weekend was good. So, aside from Sunday was pretty low key. Didn't do a ton. Just caught up on some stuff around the house, and that was about it. How about you?
It was still busy. I had some family events going on Sunday night, Sunday morning, so didn't get much time to sleep in. And I'll be honest, I called out of work today. I'm dead. I slept like all of today. Not a little under the weather. I'm not sick, but like, and I'm not. I was never hungover. We didn't go that ham. But yeah, like just broken. But
Yeah.
still always get that energy from Monday night for the podcast, no matter what. But it was a good weekend. That's the bottom line. But yeah,
Definitely.
let's talk about what we're going to do tonight. So real quickly, we are going to try to leave some time for some in-depth Q&A at the end here. So throughout the stream, if you guys want to throw out some questions, we'll do our best to jot them down. And obviously at the end there, we'll kind of reopen the floor anyway. But the topics for tonight, we want to re-look at Lilyth real quickly with some initial impressions. Now that she's been out, we have some good news as a spoiler alert. But we are going to, in the next day or two, we have not gotten the formal news drop. We are getting the Trials of Mana collaboration, and that with that comes Duran and his vision card, and Angela and her vision card. We had some limit break upgrades that we know about, some Veritas upgrades, and then we did want to take a couple minutes to talk about top 25 guilds in terms of potential recruitment. What's the status of the game up there for them? Maybe some feedback or recommendations for those of you watching about entering that scene. But regardless, we'll kick things off here with the Lilyth impressions. And, I threw a couple pulls at it, didn't get her, but you did get her, and you've been using her a little bit. What did you want to talk about with Lilyth?
I just wanted to circle back after actually getting my hands on her, using her quite extensively over the past week. I've used her in free match, I've used her in arena. I even actually used her in Guild War one day. I left in a kind of a test team one day and still managed to get a 3-star that day. So that was good to see because I was kind of afraid what was going to happen. But all the matches have been going actually very, very well in arena, even before we got to this week where there are some bonuses, I believe, for light on the map. But I've found like a particular team iteration I think that actually works really, really well with her. And we actually had a video that we were gonna showcase. But essentially, the takeaway I think from last week is we thought that she was decent, but maybe not necessarily worth pulling for. To be honest, I still think that's kind of the case. I wouldn't go out of my way to try to pull this unit, but if this was a unit that was a favorite for you and maybe you did get her maybe on a free ticket or on the 300 paid pull or whatever, she's definitely competitive as a unit. Um, I've had really nice results with her even without reincarnating her to this point. So it's actually pretty promising, if you did invest into her.
I love it. Yeah, we actually have the video here. I think we should be able to watch it, hopefully. Give me just a quick second, see if I can sync this up without any kind of enormous lag. But hopefully you guys can see this. Hopefully it doesn't slow the computer down. But this is your arena recording today. It's about 2 minutes here, so we'll give it a spin. We're not going to shoutcast everything, but we'll at least get some general observations. But I'll go ahead and click play here and see how this fight goes. Anything we should look for that you remember? Because I know I gave it a look, and obviously look for the curse limit break, but
Yeah. So I'm kind of going up against like the de facto meta team at the moment has been this Resnick, Sephiroth, Shrek team, and this is in the top 20. This is a good player. These are heavily reincarnated units. You can see 13,000 HP or higher for both of them. But I've found like very nice synergy with Cloud and Lilith. Obviously, they're both light. They can get the double chain action going. Cloud can set up some nice chains for her, and the team just becomes extremely hard to kill. With Lilith's debuffs and with Cloud kind of getting the shell online for the party as well. And of course, Resnick is there with her amazing support to kind of top it off. But the damage, this is not a reincarnated unit, so it's not going to be blowing anybody away, but it's fine enough. But you can see like she's really not taking much damage at all. And like I said, these are heavily reincarnated units we're up against here, and very well built team as well. All the best cards.
that's her limit break. Love to see that. Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. Her and Cloud are known for a little bit for their effective HP against this type, and throw just a little bit of healing their way. Those light chains, you can't stop those either. I mean, those are so difficult, particularly because not everybody gears for them right now. That's a tough thing to gear for, even though it's abundant in the game. You kind of see chain res anywhere. That's not something that people really lean into. So, yeah, you can easily get 4 to 5 to 6 chains here, and securing kills left and right, blowing them away. This is nice.
And you can see points in the matches where the fight actually would have been ended earlier, like if my Lilith had like another 150 attack or whatever. So that's promising. I'm going to continue to kind of slowly invest in her. I'm not going crazy or anything, but over time I hope to kind of get her up to a high level.
I love it. And I don't think I ever told you this. I did not tell you this. On my Lilith character review, I actually used your replay at the end of it from Guild War the other day when you were just doing a regular mock. And I give you full credit, I promise. But it was so good. I was like KT7 Up will often include replays. I'm like, this is too good not to share. Just I don't want to crap on this unit. And that was actually something that even Ramada, I quickly learned that we were. I don't know how to say this. Although these characters aren't breaking the doors down, they certainly are competitive, and probably more than we gave them credit. I've been using Ramada for like 2 weeks now in Guild War. I know you have a bunch of times. You just got 6 stars today on Final Boss, one of the top 3 guilds, and we frequently have. And even Lilith here is still holding their own. And so I think that is something to still keep in mind, that although these units aren't overturning the meta, they're still very competitive. And so while we might give them a slightly subpar grade, if you really do like a unit, you pull them, you're likely still getting some decent value out of them. Yeah. And I was just gonna say, so I just see
I mean, especially if I was just to kind of finish off that thought. We're lags too, because the reactions are kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, I think the lagging should stop now that the video is over. I think that might be part of it, that having an extra media player open might have slowed things down for us. So hopefully we get back to normal.
Yeah, it seems to be getting a little bit better now. I was just going to say, like, just to kind of piggyback on your points, especially if you have invested into those particular teams that they work really well with, like Lilith, obviously she's a light warrior. Cloud with the great sword and the light connection is perfect for Cypher, or Seifer is another excellent pairing with they have some duplication, in terms of some of the things they bring to the fight, but they obviously have all the cards that they share and can have really nice synergy that way. I think that Resnick for these bruisers is the kind of the glue that holds them all together. So you kind of do, at least while Sephiroth is here, that curse and kind of the barrier removal seal is so key, I think, for the period that we're in right now. Hopefully he'll start to fade away in the coming month or two, and we won't be so tied into that particular unit, but we'll see what happens.
If I could make a bold prediction, I actually think we will be tied to that unit. I remember that was one of my first things. That remove follow up attack, I think, still has a lot of value against Shrek and against Gilgamesh and against Sadali, who's not even out yet. So even if Sephiroth does get pushed out, Resnick does bring a lot of stuff for those other units that we called her an S tier unit upon release. Like this was like right down the middle, amazing. And I don't think that's directly tied to Sephiroth. I think that's tied to anyone that's in the meta at the moment. And since that's kind of gonna prolong itself for a while, I think those of you that passed on Summer Resnick are still gonna feel it now a month or two after the fact.
I do think that, I mean, we talked a little bit about Exia last week. I think that when she comes out, it will make it a little bit harder to play Resnick just because she can absolutely, throttle her. And I've seen her one shot Resnicks over in JP routinely. So, um,
Cool.
there is that as well.
I'm
If you
looking
didn't
forward to
get
that.
Resnick.
I did not know that. All right, cool. Well, yeah, Exia, I know we're all very excited for, but yeah, it's been good. And honestly, this is the kind of thing that now that you see a couple of characters that are competitive, this is what I look for when you start to see metas starting to transition. The whole idea of like a meta is that it's something is the de facto best team that can beat the majority of stuff that goes against it. But all of a sudden, if you start throwing characters in the mix that it doesn't win as consistently against the field, that's how metas start to change. And I think if people leaned into that, if they're capable to, that's kind of how it's got to happen. We saw that even with like the Helena meta, where a lot of units that started to get released were suddenly pushing like 30 to 50 magic resistance and all the vision cards that got released. And very slowly over time, you saw various iterations of teams starting to beat it. The near collab alone with Strike Meta came in and almost like single handedly did it, but there were still great sword teams that were still really good. And so I think we're in that phase right now. I think there's a lot of optimism to be had in the next month, 2 months of what's coming out that I think it's not going to be as locked in as it was a month or two ago when we were really kind of hammering that nail of the game is stagnant, it stinks, there's no counterplay. I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel personally. But
I think so too. I think that it is getting a little bit better. The one thing that's missing, I think, is at least at least maybe the units from last year at a minimum. You would like to see more of those come back. There have been a couple that we've had some success with, like Soul and now Elds is another good example of that. They're able to be role players on some of these teams. It would be nice to see more of that. Hopefully, in the coming months we will.
absolutely. But we do have some exciting news for the new collaboration, which is the Trials of Mana collaboration. And the free unit we're getting is Duran, who is a Wind Sword Knight unit. So it's been a hot minute since we had that Sword Knight unit. He's coming in here as a potential tank like character, not only in his attributes, he is very tanky as a general attribute, but he does have the chance to actually be that tank and have a little bit of hate here to start the fight should you use his passive. I don't believe he's got any hate anywhere else. It's not in the Trial of Reckoning item, not on his own item. So I know with like someone like Alphonse Alric, they kind of went that angle, but Duran has some flexibility that you do not have to go that way. I think he's a good unit, quite honestly. As a free unit, I think he's fine. Wind as an element, not in the worst place at the moment. It's not in the best place either. I do genuinely look forward to his pairing with Shrek, and I'm going to talk about that again in a little while with Summer Resnick as well. I think there's actually really potentially something there. But just kind of highlighting a couple things about him, he is another unit that comes in at a select two and has some of the um, decrease of unit res here. So that is his motif of how he does damage. Brings some utility with the Dispel Courage. He's also got some damage absorb. But his big thing is really being a bulky defensive unit who can reduce enemy defense pen on the other side of things. And in addition to that, he can also do it for spear penetration too. Now, it's not in all of his attacks. This one's a little more niche and how it gets applied, but you're seeing here things like Dispel Protect and even increasing his own defense and spirit. And he comes with an aura that will give allies 20 defense. So, and even 20 unit res. So that is one of those things that like he's got a little bit of extra utility for that team. Is it amazing? Probably not to the level of the other 100 cost tanks we were used to seeing, like Dario, Oldoa, and Summer Glassy. But I think he does more on the offensive side than those units did in terms of damage and utility as well. So I'll kind of pause there. What are you thinking about Duran here?
Yeah, so yeah, he definitely is kind of not a tank. He has just the 5 hate, like you said. There's no way to regenerate it, no other item like we'd seen like with Alphonse in the past. So he's kind of like an off tank, or maybe somebody that can take a hit, that first couple hits in battle, and that's about it. That said, he is very tanky. His HP is off the charts, one of the highest that we've seen so far in this next generation, and he has quite a bit of bulk in terms of like the resistances and things like that. The offensive potential isn't bad, to be honest with you. He is a little bit lacking, I think, in the defense penetration. That's I think the main thing. He can get quite a bit of slash res penetration, very high with that, and then he does, I think, have a little bit of area resist penetration.
He does.
So, you know, to be honest, we're not seeing that much defense out there in the game right now. There's not a lot of tanks being used. So generally people are kind of within that, 30, maybe less area. So the defense penetration, at least for right now, I don't think is hurting him all that much. I think he'll be able to put out pretty decent damage if you build him for it. And he does have some nice utility on the attacks. You mentioned like the potential pairing with Shrek. That select two. I believe it's a range 5, is it?
Range 4, it looks like.
Range 4. Yeah. Range 4, but it's a 200% modifier. It does dispel courage, which is super nice. Because obviously Shrek has the re-raise dispel. And this is going to be a way that he can help amplify her damage or any other unit attacker's damage. In Shrek's case, she does have up to the 50% unit penetration with Garuda if you're using that Esper. But, if somebody has like 40 or 50 unit resist, they're still able to block 20 to 25% of her damage. He's going to be able to knock that down substantially, basically cut that down in another half or a little bit better. So I do like that pairing. He obviously has the aura for the area resist, and that pairs very nicely with her dispel seal. So yeah, I think he's a good unit. I don't think he's one that I would rush out and build, but if you're somebody that has invested into the night group or has invested into wind, he's certainly, I think, going to be a worthy unit in time. Maybe right now isn't the best time for him, but I'm sure that's how he'll be, used in the future.
Yeah, I could totally agree with that. And you're right. On that slash res pen too, he's got 20 on the mastery ability that I completely forgot. So yeah, that's really the thing that I look for because there's so much slash resistance in the game. That's been kind of consistent, not only innately, but like what popular espers potentially have on them, or the vision cards certainly have a lot of that too. But yeah, I'm a big fan of him. We'll kind of quick hit preview to his vision card too. We won't have to stay here, but it's got book on it and staff black major, which is why I really like that pairing. To me, and I've said this before, I'll say it again just because maybe not everyone has heard it, he does strike me as a unit that really needs the dispel seal somewhere in there because a lot of his buffs and his aura abilities, just to recap for people, these aura effects, although they're like permanent once he activates his aura, when an enemy is attacking you, they will essentially like snapshot whatever your stats are, and if someone's attacking you with a general dispel, like Sephiroth, he can dispel everything on hit. When he attacks a teammate that's standing in this aura, because these buffs are dispellable, Sephiroth will ignore these stats when he attacks you. So this aura is virtually useless against dispel sort of attacks. Whereas someone like Shrek can seal that enemy dispel capability, so you will get 100% uptime of this aura in addition to some of its other ones where when we talk about like overall tankiness, like this is a flat 25% or 25 defense and spirit in the mid fight. He's got another one here on a different attack. So his ability to like proc these very high levels of defense without throughout the fight, and then to already have enemy dispel C applied, like I think you need to ramp him up to get there. And that's why I think that synergy is so important. In addition to obviously the wind link up there, the unit res peril here that he brings as well. There's a lot that they do well together. Even like the elemental chain res. Oh, it's his. I'm sorry. Regardless, the point stands. I think he's a solid unit. I'm not rushing to build him. He doesn't exactly fit with how I want to play my account, but I'll probably get him to 99 so I can get those mind spheres. And if those that do want to use him, like if you're strong on the wind, I think he's a valuable addition. And for Sword Knight, Sword Knight doesn't have a lot of gangbusters characters. I think he does pretty well.
I think too, like whenever we flip back to like a more heavy physical meta, like right now we're very much in a magic meta with Gilgamesh and Shrek, and we got a lot more coming, with Angela and Exia, Sodali, Crimson Wizard. So very much entrenched now in magic. The defense penetration in peril is going to be very valuable whenever we flip back, because he does have that like Aldoa TMR effect as part of his party buff, which gets another 20 defense penetration debuff on hit.
Yes.
So he can get up to 50 defense penetration removal. So I do like that quite a bit. For the future. So just
Couldn't
wanted to
agree
mention
more.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we just kind of wrap things up with him, his weapon, I'll be honest, this one doesn't wow me. This is nice from the perspective that it's 20 defense pen instead of the 10 from a trust stone passive, but I'm really not sold on this weapon. To me, this is the kind of unit that I might even go for like an accessory and is he armor? I think he is. Like an accessory and armor and just do like an Alex ring and something heavier. I don't know if this sword really does a ton. I would maybe just look for other options. It's not awful, but it doesn't wow me. I don't know if that's just me.
This might be the first time that we've seen that critical damage resistance on an item, as far as I can remember, anyway.
I think I've seen it
Um,
once somewhere, and I can't remember where it is. But you're right. This is
mm,
um,
Relatively new, anyway.
I,
But I don't really love that, because you do. I would rather just not get crit in the first place. Like, yeah, this is better. This is essentially like 8% mitigation if you do get crit, but that's like situational. Like, obviously, he's a plate user. You might have like Maximilian on him. You know, I would rather just avoid it. I'd rather it be a high value for crit avoidance instead.
I like that. That's a good take on it. I would agree with that. And we will transition here to his vision card as well, which is not free. Although you're allowed to summon him for free, you have to use regular spheres to max him. And this vision card you will have to acquire as well. They don't hand this out. But this is honestly, I think, a pretty good vision card. You're getting that full 60% attack, 24% chain res. This 20% physical wide res, I think, is the highest at the moment that's been introduced. It's normally at the 16% threshold. So again, we've talked about this. This is um, uh, it, substitutable with regular AoE resistance. They both have pros and cons, and we get this question a lot, and the answer is complex, but this is a potential main slot vision card, and we talk about that defense angle that he brings. You get for Guild War here 9 defense to anyone in the party, so just really, jacking up that survivability mechanic as well. It does link some classes that he already does well with, as I mentioned, that Staff Black Mage group and Book. I think they've got like 3 in a row as of late of vision cards pairing together. The new Resnick vision card is one of them as well that links them all up. Obviously, that also includes Shreka here, who we were just talking about a second ago. So there's a lot of like already built-in synergy here for him that I don't know what else I would want. But the big thing here I haven't talked about yet. That 15% curse res, certainly nice. This is the first time on a vision card. We've had it for Espers, obviously had it on abilities. This is a bestowed effect though that can translate to everybody. But I'll pause there, kind of let you take the reins on the rest of the vision card or stuff you want to talk about with it.
Yeah, this is the highest physical wide resist we've seen so far, because it's always been the secondary stat thus far, or it's been like a hollow effect at the 12%. So that's really cool. You could think about like maybe pairing this with an army plate and get like 35% passive. Maybe you have like 15 innately or something like that, and suddenly like those diamond AoEs, even if they have like um, the wide res removal, it doesn't matter because that's all passive or baked in at that point.
Correct.
So I like that. This does give him that 20% defense pen. If you had this on Duran or anyone, that's open to anyone who has this equipped. So this does kind of complete his kit. This gets him the curse resist he needs, the defense pen, obviously the 60% attack. So it's kind of an all-in-one card for him. But I do like it for those groups in general, Sword C and Axe. It's going to be a strong card for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is definitely one to hone in on and pull, in my opinion. We've seen vision cards as of late been very important for still linking up these jobs. They are a crucial part of the power creep as of late. Maybe not as much as some of the units. The units obviously carry themselves, but some of these vision cards are what really allow these metas to thrive when you kind of get locked in into one group of them. And this one I could see being the case with Shreka being a top tier unit here. And, obviously Ashen King Mont has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, but we've seen resurgences in characters like Aldoa once in a while here, and even like the Fire Veritas have seen some good usage that I think this is still promising, even from the light perspective. Like for a newer account, Helena and Wingstern are both popular light units that I think a lot of people have access to. That there's enough here that I think is good in the present and will still be good in the future.
And I mean, we in terms of Axe, we know that Halloween Lucio is going to be coming back soon, maybe with some nice upgrades. We'll have to see what ends up happening there. But Moraga is another unit potentially that could be part of that Axe group in the near future. So if those are things that you've built into or are interested in, this might be a good card to get.
Totally great. But we'll move on here to Angela. Anything else you want to talk about with Duran, or is that covered for you?
No, I think that's good. Like I said last time, I'm gonna throw him in the barracks and not planning on spending a ton of viz, but I will like to build him up over time.
I actually just wanted to. I'm so sorry. I should have called this out. I actually his TMR. It's unfortunate. It's a shield. There's a very small pool of units that can use this. Not the worst TMR in my opinion for just two reasons. Number one, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. The defense and spirit, the 14 values here. This is a good jumping off part for your trust stones when you try to like min max your defense and spirit stats. But the effect itself, not the worst one here. The protect, the regen, and the damage absorption here, which I believe does stack with other potential types of damage absorb. Depends on the percentage, I believe. But for units that don't have this innately, and there's not a ton as far as like older tanks go, interesting how they went this direction. I don't love it, but it caught my eye.
One interesting thing about the shield is that Veritas of the Wind is able to equip shields,
Yes,
shield TMRs. So I think he's probably one of the, other than Duran, I think he's probably one of the best units that's able to use this, and might be nice for him, to get that absorbing effect.
totally agreed. Yeah, that's why that's the first unit that came to mind for me. I'm glad you said it more specifically. But um, for Angela here, this is a new dark unit as part of the staff devout group. It feels like just yesterday, whenever a dark unit came out, everyone was like, all hands on deck, mass pull, and use no matter what. That has seemingly not been as much of the case this year, and they're obviously taking a little break from these broken dark units. And Angela's the same. She's not an exceptionally high damage, amazing spellcaster. This is a very solid unit, though. There's a lot of things to still like. She is, when I first saw her, I thought more of like a bruiser in nature just because of how she has some of this physical wide resistance. There's this mechanic we've talked about, the untranslated effect that when someone dies, even if that includes a unit who got re-raised, that still counts as a death. There's some survivability buffs baked into here. There's some buffs built in the mid fight on her abilities, like this 25% reduced physical damage taken. That it's the kind of unit that, although it may not like blow people away, I think she's got enough bulk and sustain, and I like what she does from like a general utility perspective. Of you got Dispel Courage here, you have the reduced counter chance flat 100%. The Dispel Haste and Shell here, and the reduced magic damage taken buff. Like those are three excellent, really popular ones to have here. A couple status effects that people aren't gearing for, like Poison on this 120, as well as the Slow on her Limit Break. So you have Break Magic Barrier here. So there's a lot of things to like. I know one of the key things that caught our eye initially was the fact that the lack of access to spirit penetration felt weird because although it is here on this bottom passive, in like 99% of instances, you're going to be using her main unique one, actually both unique ones. These are both exceptional enough that very difficult argument to have the spirit penetration. But Gumi's kind of done something very interesting with this unit that I'll kind of just end on. They've given her a crap ton of AoE resistance penetration, not only baked into, like, I think it's on her, was it here? No, it's on a buff, but it's also on her vision card too. And so I think that's basically trading off the loss of damage from the lack of spirit penetration. And she's very diamond oriented here, and even this other AoE that I don't think it's going to be noticeable not having access to that. It is on a buff, so it's not the end of the world. She can still get 40 spirit penetration pretty easily, but a little bit different. But I like her a lot. I'm looking forward to pulling her, but I'll pause there. Where do you want to take her from here?
I mean, just I think you kind of summed it up pretty well. But essentially, at the end of the day, what she's a bruiser, but with a kind of a magical edge to her. She has the unique capability that she's able to dispel the HP absorption effect, and I think that's the most unique thing about her. That's the first time we've ever seen that, and I think that's going to be potentially important as we go forward because Sadali does have the ability to pass that on to other units, and we've seen so many units just have that already. Cypher has it, Joom has it, a bunch of other units have it too. So uh, I really like that about her from just kind of like a chess piece potential. Her damage is not exceptional by any means. It's not horrible, but it's definitely not great because you can see here she has a couple pieces of utility, but there's no sort of imperils. There's no breaks of any kind. Um, she does have the shell dispel, which is pretty important, and she can get rid of the wide resistance. Um, but that's a sen and then she can get rid of the reduced magical damage taken as well, which is like very, very rare. We've only seen that on Gilgamesh so far. So those three kind of dispels are super important. And I think as a partner, if you're looking ahead towards maybe Exia or other devout casters, I think this utility is going to be key for them to really be able to pop.
I totally agree. And I did want to focus on that dispel of damage absorption, that this is improperly translated at the moment on Motive Calc. So this is what you're referring to. It's the teammate buff. I'll be honest, I think this is an exceptional piece of utility. This to me is like basically Curse 2.0 in many ways, where there's no counterplay to it at the moment. And almost every unit has some kind of damage absorb capability that should you get rid of this, that's a major portion of people's self-sustain, that even if you had a unit that like was applying a ton of healing power down everywhere, someone like Cypher, let's say, you can still like remove those debuffs. And we see that on a couple healers where they like remove debuff before healing. Like once this is gone, it's literally gone for the whole battle. Like because all these damage absorb buffs typically get applied as part of like someone's opening rotation. It's not something that you ever really see like reapplied uh as part of the normal fight as it occurs. So I like this a lot, that there's just no counterplay for it. And provided that you're seeing these teams that don't feel like running an external healer, if they're relying on this damage absorption to like kind of carry their first and second fight, this is like an immediate like kick their legs from underneath them. That although she doesn't do a lot of damage per se, the fact that she can remove that damage absorption basically means that she doesn't have to do as much damage in the first place if they're not going to be healing themselves up. If they were healing themselves up the whole single fight, then yeah, not being able to do a lot of damage hurts you more because they're just going to replenish that health. But the fact they can't replenish that health means you just don't have to do as much damage. It's one of those things. It's like best offense is like the best defense. That I think it works because she can sustain herself for a very long time. So I like this unit a lot personally.
I will say one thing about the dispel of the absorption effect. It's not going to work on attacks that have it sort of baked in. Like for example, Sephiroth's Sunder ability has like the 50% absorb as like a modifier of the or as a attribute of that attack. It's not going to do anything against those. Only against the actual buff that they put on themselves. That's going to be dispelled. She does have one other sort of feather in the cap of this unit. super, super tanky against magic damage. You can see there that party buff. She gets the 50% magic damage taken. So that's a 4-turn barrier. It's kind of similar to Cypher, only this one's just for magic only. And then she does have the similar to the Joom effect, that's Shell 2.0 for the reduced magic damage taken 25%. That does go to allies on there also. She does have the
Ooh.
Grimoire Keeper also, if you wanted to bring in like a physical barrier of 7,500 HP. So she can kind of get both barriers going potentially. And to be honest, she's not super tanky against physical damage. So that may be something that you want to look into if you're using her.
Absolutely love it, and that's an exceptional call out. But yeah, in addition to that, her weapon here too wouldn't sleep on. This is 15% physical AoE wide res and 10 debuff weakening. I like these from the fact that they're not on your trust stone passives already, which is why I like Duran's. I'm kind of like, 15% HP. Well, I'm already getting 10%. It's nice for flexibility in your Trust Stone passives that you don't have to worry about having those on, but I like it when they give some really unique ones here that I love this staff. It's always a question, is it better than the Wizard Rod? Because we've seen time and time again that the 250 CT up is like an absolute game changer. This one I think is just competitive that maybe it is good enough that you would use this instead. It's hard for me to give up this 15% AoE wide res permanently. Obviously, in addition to the debuff weakening, I think that is a key part of her character build as a bruiser. I don't think you would get the same benefit of getting the turn 250 CT quicker because that's not really her style. For someone like Shreka, it's a game changer because she's so explosive that getting that one turn extra, like someone's dead. But for Angela, this is likely the difference between you dying and not dying in many instances.
I love this weapon. I would use this one just because she has the 15% wide res on passive. This gets her to 30, and then maybe you can bring that up with a card. One call out, Lucifer in the chat is talking about the TOR item that really gave her a nice enhancement, and definitely that's a big boost. I think that she got. She got a.
Could you recap it here? Or I'm gonna try to bring it up too, but
It's the drum there. Yeah. So she's getting essentially an on-hit effect when she's above 50% HP, which will decrease 20 spirit from the target. And that's going to account for pretty much everybody in the meta. Like hardly anybody is really topping 20 spirit other than like maybe a Dario, or maybe that's about it, I think, to be honest with you. So at that point, she essentially has 100% spirit penetration on those targets because that's going to be calculated pre-damage. She does get that magic damage 10% on there also, so it's a huge damage increase for her with this item. This does get the curse resistance on there. Unfortunately, it's only 25%. She doesn't have any innately, so it is going to be something that you're going to need to contend with, at least while Sephiroth is around, whether you opt for like the Resnick or a Fina potentially, maybe could be a good partner too. But yeah, that is something that she's going to need to be worried about.
And if I could glass half full this for a second, the passive effects here. So these three I've highlighted are the universal effects here. As we've pointed out, these don't stack with Truststone passives. But for someone like her that's a 97 faith unit, I extra appreciate having these here because it frees up 2 Truststone passive slots for other status ailments, which we've talked about this. There's enough floating around right now. It makes it difficult because, just to re-summarize, Curse and Immobilize are Sephiroth and Shreka, but Sephiroth at 97 Faith also very often uses Berserk and Sleep, depending on the sub job that he uses. So not only is Sephiroth like a 3-in-1 that you have to gear for 3 different resistances, but you also have other units like Lucille, who has Disable on the guaranteed hit. You have units like Summer Glaciella, who has Stop on her guaranteed hit. Not inclusive of some of these newer units, like you have Angela, Slow on the Limit Break. Even Summer Resnick has Slow on her main diamond, which doesn't happen all that often, but this is one of those things that is a 97 faith unit. To get 2 of these for free, that means I can go for 2 of any other kind that I want. That's actually got some nice value, in my opinion, because there's a lot of them floating around right now.
And I think I would recommend the aim builds on this one, at least for Angela, because she doesn't have 100% hits. So you could combine this with like an offensive trust stone passive with the 10 accuracy. It's not quite as good as an Alex ring, but it's not far off at that point. and you can cover your bases for accuracy there.
I would definitely, I agree. Go for the accuracy. Trial of Reckoning is easy enough in some ways now with the background repeat that you probably can get two copies of this. I don't think these 13% are game changers on either one though, so I don't think you're missing out if you end up only making one copy with the accuracy. I think that's probably more bang for your buck. So good call out on the type. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we move on to her vision card here, which her vision card again. We talk about some of that bestowed effect. 20% area res pen for this, and this is a group for staff devouts, for sword warrior, and for guns. I'll be honest, gun being on here is a little random for me. I genuinely don't know why. I haven't My IQ isn't that high to see the chess when I'm playing checkers with that connection, but Sword Warrior is getting
Maybe
slowly
it's
built
like
out.
the Irvine the Irvine connection.
Yeah, I unless there's like a magic gun. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wasn't the new Veritas unit announced a magic gun unit, the Light Veritas? Isn't that the unit that was just announced in JP?
It is.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right, we're cooking. We're cooking, guys. So yep, that's the only thing I could think of that would go. But other than that, I mean, this is still 24% unit res. That's the highest unit res you can get. 40% magic is still really great, even though it's not the full 60%. 40% is certainly a material amount. And the crit evade permanently is obviously excellent for all those follow-up attacks that we're seeing. I like the fact that it's some HP for arena. That should that say dual mode or is that specifically arena? Do you know off the top of your head? Uh
Dual.
Dual,
Yeah, it
okay.
should be dual.
So yeah, so for things like, because I'm thinking free match and quick pick and all those. So for the dual game mode, for a unit like her, we talk about her being relatively bulky. That 15% certainly helps in those competitive game modes when you also add up the fact that you also get 10% here on the bestowed. I'm sure when she gets announced, there'll be an Angela unique bestowed effect. Who knows what that could be? If that's AoE res or extra HP or who knows what, even a little bit of magic wouldn't hurt. But if it's a survivability metric, that would still be excellent. And for staff devout units, these units aren't exceptional, but they're still pretty insulated from a lot of the power creep. A lot of these units still like will surprise you. And obviously Exia here is the primo of like what's upcoming, but I know you just mentioned Soul had like a little bit of a pop more recently. Even Water Veritas, as we talk about like these magic metas, has like seen some flashes. It's not amazing, but it's certainly worth mocking. But even units like Lucille here, who's on this card to be a support for some of these devout teams, that she's a potential like crutch to giving them the survivability and sustain that they need to be able to frontline without any kind of like real damage mitigation otherwise. But I do like this card. I mean, I think it's worth building. I think it's worth pulling. The bestowed effect alone is really promising for a lot of these units for how diamond heavy they can potentially be. It's not my favorite, but I think it's a solid one. I do like it a lot.
Personally, I thought that this was the out of everything from the collab, I thought this was the best of the bunch.
I can see that.
Um, not only for like the unit res magic combination, which we've seen be super powerful with Orochi, but that we're bringing that here to staff B and gun, like you mentioned. But the area resist penetration on a vision card bestowed, I think that could be potentially really strong, going forward. We haven't seen that effect before, so that's super unique here.
I agree. I think my downplaying of it was more on the selection of classes for it, where I'm really only thinking about this from Sword Warrior and Staff Devout, and even then, like Sword Warrior is getting not minimal, they're getting good value from the unit res and the crit evade, but you know what I mean. It's not a super strong synergy of what jobs are available. Where Gun and Sword Warrior primarily are physical oriented cards. That this is still worth it. The stats on it are nice, but I think my ceiling of application was a little bit lower because of that. But you're right. Intrinsically, it's still a very valuable card.
At
Yeah.
least right now, it's very heavy, like on the light and dark connection, and that's gonna continue as we get light Veritas. But those that trio of jobs have, for those two elements in particular, light and dark, have always been kind of stalwarts. But water is kind of right there as well, and like you mentioned, Exia seems to be a very strong upcoming unit that would benefit greatly from this card.
Yeah. Chris Metz asked which card would you pick if you could only grab one? I'll be honest, I don't know if I could give a solid answer without doing some more analysis. And obviously, the default answer is, well, it depends on your account as well. Which of the classes are you really leaning into, and what's your future pull plan? Like, if you're a water main and pulling Exia, this is a must pull for you if you're really like diving into that Exia team. If you went super hard on, King Mott and you're dying on that hill and you're gonna build Duran because he's the free unit, obviously the other card right up your alley. So it really is account dependent. I don't think either one of these is necessarily objectively better than the other because they do bring valuable offensive stats and defensive stats, both in the duel and guild war for the hollow effect too. So like, there's not a clear cut favorite in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, it depends on what you've built up and what's you're leaning towards, in terms of what we know is coming.
I don't know off the top of my head. Is this the first unit res card for Staff Devout? Uh,
No, no, they have a couple.
that's what I
They
thought.
have Master Curl, I think, and FMA.
Yes. Yeah, Master Curl and
Yeah.
FMA. And obviously both are physical stat oriented. So yeah, it's not as perfect a synergy. You are taking a pretty big like stat hit on losing out on the 40% magic to party and the fact that one unit's gonna have a physical card instead of a magical card. So there is that angle, but there are options if you really wanted the unit res. So that should at least answer that part of the question.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think it's everything to talk about for Angela. I mean, before we kind of move along here, I know for me, like a lot of people have looked at JP's impressions of this collab, and JP was a little bit underwhelmed. I can see why, because this is not moving the needle in the way that like Sephiroth did. This is like one of those collabs to where, last year we've had a couple that we're fine. Obviously, too, the fact that this game it doesn't hit hard with a lot of us here in global, but I think these are two relatively high quality units, and I think the vision cards are two excellent vision cards, which should also like shift the meta in some small ways. But I don't think we should sleep on this. I think these are two very solid units that have things that should scale well over time, if that makes sense. I don't see any deficiencies in them that makes me think they would be obsolete or if the meta shifted that they would just suck tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like I see things that are really promising in both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's especially in Duran's case, he's not going to be expensive. He's not going to be that expensive to build, because it's a very long event. We have barracks and chocobo you can take advantage of. Usually they give us at least some freebies, in terms of guild shards and obviously the bingo board I think probably should be there as well. So, there's going to be quite a few free shards to be able to build him up. Angela is kind of the big question, and for me, I would say if you're like a light dark player, or if you are going for Exia, then she should be like I think a pretty good consideration for you. For other folks, you can probably get by without her. I think that Exia also like if the for the Exia thing, she can just as easily, work next to Sottily if you were more interested in that unit. So, there's different directions that you can potentially go.
Agreed. It's a good call out then. And we do have some limit break upgrades here, which we will get through. And one of them is for our old favorite bridal Alaya, who dominated the game for quite some time. And I'll be honest, has like stood the test of time as best as a unit could. She kind of like Bradley, not necessarily the unit they used to be, but we've seen them used in various teams and still be really meaningful contributors. There's a lot of people using her as of late with the new Ramada unit, where it's not my personal favorite group, but I've seen a lot of people use it with good success. I think you've done some mocking. I know there are people in chat like Ezog who have done really great. Even Crimson Lice, who's in Mako and other top 10, have done well with that group. This limit break is primo, exceptional, amazing greatness. So it was formerly that Giant Imperil, 58 AP. It is being reduced to 43 AP. So love to see that, economy built in there. It's getting a modifier increase here that scales off the number of enemies that are in it. So this is one of those that like it's gonna change a lot depending upon the enemy's like debuff weakening for how much the imperil actually lands for, and depending upon what the modifier ends up being. But regardless, this is still going to be used pretty prevalently because those are two excellent like damage increasers that this is going to be a seal buff removal to anyone that it hits, which absolutely awesome. This line, I'm not going to lie, a little confused on the wording of it. I can't tell if this is seal courage or if this is, I don't know what this is. So I don't know if you have clarity on
Yeah,
that.
that
Is that what that is?
Yeah, it is a weird wording. I think it was worded that way on Snow's limit burst upgrade also, but for whoever this hits, it should be a courage removal seal.
Which is awesome because
The
she's a courage oriented unit, so that's perfect for her if it's not already removed at that time in the fight.
yeah, as is Ramada too. So the thing about the modifier increase there, I think that it should top out at 250% if you're hitting a single unit, then 225 if you're hitting two, and then it's just a 200 if you're hitting three or more.
Yep.
Um, it was already like a really amazing limit burst, like the 50% imperil. Like this was kind of one of the original power creeps to kind of that traditional 38% imperil that we've seen for so long. Um, and this is actually getting a range increase of one as well. So now it's
Oh,
going
it
up to a
is.
potential range of five. So
Enormous call out.
um, yeah, so two different seals there. This is one of the best limit burst upgrades that we've seen so far. And she's like you said, she's still like she's not like what she was, but she's still relatively competitive. Like the re-raise removal that she has is still very, very potent. She can still cut through strike resist better than anyone,
Yep.
and still does nice damage. So
Agreed.
I can,
Oh no, go ahead. Finish your thought. Sorry.
yeah, I was just gonna say I can see this unit, getting even more play, and she has been getting some already.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I know everyone got sick of her for a while, but the game has evolved enough that I think you can deal with her. Obviously, that was a problem back then. There was limited tools to deal with her. But as a permanent pool unit, I do appreciate this. That is something that I look for here. Where one of my things that I like about the direction they've gone in the game is that a lot of these amazing units, even though it stinks when they're like game changing meta and it can be tough for a while, units like Gilgamesh and Shreka and Alaya and Soul, the fact that they're permanent pool means that as these new players come in, you never have this like lingering FOMO that the game has passed them by and that they have no way to ever catch up. If they can bolster the permanent pool here, I feel like that's a really good way to like get people up to speed a little faster. Even if these aren't amazing meta units, when you're just starting the game, you're not competing at that level anyway. But I like the fact that they give some of these permanent pool units maybe a little bit of extra love because I think if your permanent pool, tapers off too quickly, I think that's bad for the health of the game. I think these units should be standing the test of time better than some other units should. It is,
And I mean, her stag's impact is still incredibly impotent with the CT down and also the casting
cancel.
cancel as well on there. So
Yep.
going into a magic meta where there's some units casting out there, like that could be potentially pretty huge too.
Completely agreed. But the next unit probably won't get as much attention. It's Bronwell getting a burst upgrade. Hers, 10 AP reduction. It's getting changed from a small like cross shape to a much larger cross shape, if you will. So I think it is technically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to just double check this. It is a range extension of one, so it is getting a little bit of one square tile longer. It will dispel all debuffs to self. It's going to dispel the reductions to her physical damage. I think the other thing here was that it's getting 40 debuff weakening and some AP restore. I'll be honest, not the worst limit break. This does a lot that I like. The dispel debuffs I think is underrated. That's one of those ones where it's like you can cleanse healing power down, you can cleanse imperils that have been put down on you. Bronwell, I'm still underwhelmed with. You've had better results with her than I have. I gave her a run during the Greatsword meta, and to me, she strikes me as a unit that, because of her innate pierce resistance that she has, if there's no pierce units against that's like a major part of her like strength gone. She is still known for her defense pen reduction and her spirit pen reduction. That angle's fine. I just have not gotten her to live long enough to really like appreciate that. Like the new Lilyth unit did that we just saw. I never got those results with Bronwell personally, but this is a good limit break. Um, I'll just pause there. Yeah, I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean it's not going to blow any doors down. I think it's fine, especially as a 70 cost unit. She still has her niche of the defense penetration debuffs, which she can get, with the limit burst combined with her on hit effect. 70 defense penetration debuff is it's pretty crazy. At least right now, the debuffs are a little bit devalued just because of Resnick and her heal, which gets rid of all of them in one shot. But for future physical meta, it could potentially be like a niche use.
Agreed. Good question here in the chat from Mondaris that won't making her limit break wider make it worse in this meta? And it's kind of like a two-pronged answer that yes, technically she should do less damage with it theoretically if nothing else changed. The fact that the modifier is getting increased from 200 to 240 though does help the damage a little bit, so it's not as big of a damage reduction. But the X's and O's reason why I like this upgrade is simply the fact that you can capture more enemies in it. And so to me, I think this would really stink if you had this very small cross shape. You only landed on 1 out of 3 enemies. Well, then that nice big defense pen reduction or spear pen reduction doesn't get nearly the amount of value. If you can land this on more units on average, that's going to help her survivability by being applied to apply this more liberally. So that's the way I see it. But I agree, technically, this should be a slightly smaller amount of damage that it does, depending on the AoE wide res. But even then, it's not a diamond. So the diamond is really the one that gets punished by the AoE wide res. This does too a little bit, but not as much as the diamond. So not yeah, debilitating.
Yeah, I agree with that take. This is the main reason why you want to see this come out is not for the damage, it's for the debuffs, and you'd be kind of building into that strategy if you're using this unit. So yeah, I like it to be able to hit more units with it.
Agreed. And we are also getting the Fire Veritas limit break here, and this is a very interesting one. 49 AP. This is like the good old fashioned like Astrius area of effect where it's 4 squares away at the center targeting tile, but is technically up to like a range 6 of what it can hit out to. It's a 60% AoE crush, which I feel like we haven't seen this in a while to get a 60% AoE crush, with also a little bit of damage absorption here. I don't hate this one. I don't love this one. The way I'm approaching this ability is that I think it does some interesting things for his positioning, more so than it does for damage or survivability. Where we've seen a couple times where some of these weird targeting areas, I know oftentimes we will shut them off just because it can get kind of unreliable as to whether or not they get baited. Like you can never really predict all the time, like if an enemy's in range and who's exactly in range. So sometimes that randomness is just not worth it. But this one I think is interesting that if it forces his AI to like stagger off from a teammate to like line up a hit more diagonally, I'm really interested to see if this affects his movement at all. Like in terms of positioning on the battlefield. That's the way I'm approaching it because although the crush is really cool, I thought he was fine already in the main kit in terms of damage. I didn't really think he needed it, but it certainly does help his diamond damage. That's for damn sure. But I don't know how to feel about this one yet. I don't know if you've thought more about it.
So technically, it's a range of 7.
Is it really? Did I
Um,
miscount that?
yeah, so it's you're targeting 4, but the the left and right tiles there would be like if you had a range 7 diamonds and kind of hitting those ones off to the sides.
I kind of see what you mean. Yeah.
So he's going to be able to he's going to be able to hit from downtown with this. If you're like pairing him up with Sephiroth, I like it because although Sephiroth does have this utility, it's on his Blazing Slash, which is kind of his kind of melee range attack. He doesn't always favor it or use it all the time either. So it can be a nice attack to from a long range to be able to potentially set up Sephiroth or any other sort of heavy AoE attacker. Does get the absorb on there, which is nice too. Gives him another way to heal back. He has another 50% absorb in his main kit as well. This unit has been very usable. Especially if you've been able to grind up his reincarnation and the Veritas accessory, he can be very competitive. Not as much against Shrek, since she came in. I think when the meta was Gilgamesh and Sephiroth, he was an excellent counter unit. He doesn't hold up quite as well against Shrek in the magic damage, although he's not terrible if you build him for it.
I would say I'll be the glass half full because Quistis in our guild has been using him pretty extensively, and I've seen some replays where it's not his niche to go against Shrek, but he doesn't blow away in the wind against her. He particularly when you have a healer next to him, which Resnick often is. He's just bulky enough that he can still like last longer than you'd expect. I do agree though. Obviously, that's not the favorable matchup, and I'm slightly surprised to not see. Oh, yeah, I'm a little
It has to
surprised.
be. I just gonna say it has to be Resnick because for the magic barriers, that's going to be key to having him go up against magic damage.
Yeah, we've had people use this, and he's much better than I thought he was upon release. The 140 they did for him was a really nice upgrade with the AOE wide res, as well as the extra slash res, which is his niche. But even the ability upgrade too ended up being very helpful for, like, I don't know, adding in just the, I don't remember what it was at this point. Oh, the damage absorb. That's this ability. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So his sustain got way better. Yeah, I think this is promising.
I do still like he imperils the reaction block of the opponents as well with that big diamond, which is super unique and definitely helps him out because he's kind of like a counter retaliation based unit too.
Wait, isn't this when it halves buffs? Isn't this the increase? Isn't this the
Yeah,
mistranslation?
yeah, it decreases reaction block of the enemy, just like Hio's upgrade.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. I like that. All right,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Thank you.
decreases reaction block 50%. So if they had 100, they're down to 50.
Okay, thank you. Now it clicked for me. Yes, low key, very nice part of it there. I'm sorry. I always thought this was the buff one, the Shadow Links one that got improperly translated. That like cuts buffs in halves. The White Lotus Fina. Okay, all right. I feel different
Yeah,
about
that
this.
one was translated as reflect
That's right.
reflect rate.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, we won't spend too much longer because there are other things we want to get to. But I think we're also getting his axe. I think that's typically the cadence of how this comes out. That when they get their limit break, they get the piece of equipment. I'll be honest, it's a pretty good weapon. I don't know what we've been using in terms of other weapons. I know Rune Axe is still a really good one, but getting the 20 AOE res pen here, the free 15 accuracy, which doesn't stack with his Veritas item, which is a good thing. Because they get the luck to get the dex, but you get the free 15 accuracy, which we've always said is kind of like a downfall of the Veritas accessory, that units that do struggle with accuracy, you really can't like put an Alex ring anywhere in there because of that, but you get it for free here. And even the unit res, this is a unit that we saw can heal himself quite frequently, so this is going to have some decent uptime. I like this weapon a lot. This is a good weapon.
This does exactly what he's trying to, it leans into exactly what he's trying to do and be with the bruiser stats with the unit resistance there on top of it. So I like that, especially because as a plate user, they're a little bit more limited when it comes to unit resist options.
Yep.
And then of course he's going to be kind of locked into using the Veritas accessory, so he's not really at a luxury for using armor all the time anyway. So um, yeah, I think this is a good piece for him.
Agreed. And on the Veritas topic, the Ice Veritas here is getting their 140 ability. So people have been getting closer to him being the 140, so appropriately timed. He's getting 15 unit res, the 20 crit damage. That's a sizable amount of crit damage mod. Um, we'll see if it actually matters or not, but that's a noteworthy number. And his skill, they're actually upgrading his buff here. And the upgrade to the buff, it was elemental chain res. He's now getting shell. He did not have shell formerly. He is still getting courage. That was always there. Decrease AP consumption is still there. The decrease crit damage resistance is still there, which like lines up really nicely. And again, the way this works is if you crit hit the enemy, this is like a straight extra damage percent they take. So this is perfect for that angle. And he is getting I use this as like the bridal Alaya effect. When he falls below 20% HP, he's gonna be hate -6. That is an impressive like late fight buff with the amount of select twos that are around currently. That a unit like this that can reduce their hate to the bottom of the targeting chain. When it comes to the select twos, him not getting hit when he's at courage or below 20% means he won't die. So this to me, like we saw Bridal Alaya really abuse it sometimes, where you're like, oh, she's at 1 health, someone just sneezed on her, someone just hit her, but she would go -6 hate because of her buff, and then no one would touch her because she's on the bottom of the priority. She slams you again for an attack, and like all of a sudden, like you can't do anything. I like it. I think this is intriguing what they did.
It's especially strong when the meta has flipped to like unit resist attackers, where a lot of them are select twos, where they'll hit the other two teammates
Right.
potentially.
Right.
Which that they're Shrek is a select two attacker, Exia is a select two attacker, so there's definitely going to be some out there. I really like this unit as a complement for Gilgamesh. I think they go together so nicely, not only because they're ice, but also because you have the Katana Red Mage synergy, which is very, very strong. But he, the critical imperil or the critical damage resistance sets up Gilgamesh perfectly for those follow-up attacks. The unit resist crush that he has also sets it up so nicely. Where those two together, like if you're able to land those follow-up attacks, they're really, really going to be popping off. So I think that this is going to be a nice unit. I think I'm still probably like a month or so away of getting to 140, but he's going to be getting there pretty soon.
I agree.
So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm about the same time away, but I have him in the barracks. He is a good enough unit that he was worth putting in the barracks for me to try to accelerate how quickly I can get him to 140. So definitely looking forward to that.
The
But
funny thing is that it is actually Gilgamesh.
yeah,
for
you're
for people that don't know like the FFBE lore, Veritas of the Frost is Gilgamesh within the FFBE timeline before he's come back in time, I think, to Ardra. So I love that they go together there for that kind of lore reason too.
I would be very intrigued to see if they ever like actually make that connection in the game because we've seen the Light Veritas be summoned by Jaden, and so the Veritas units have actually been like seen in the game. I would be very interested to see if like, particularly with FFBE being like end of service, if they end up like, deciding that now is the time to converge some of the storylines, if they ever go that angle, that would be a really interesting way to like bring the two together.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Definitely. But a couple other like last things here. We do still want to get to the Q&A briefly at the end, so get your questions ready if we haven't answered them already. But we wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about top 25 guild recruitment, where, obviously this game has always had ebbs and flows of membership. There's been a lot of things that have triggered people to either take a break or retire outright. Obviously, Road to Worldwide, even the reincarnation. People got burned out with trust stones for a period of time there. There have been metas that people just didn't enjoy. But obviously, this Sephiroth curse meta has been kind of another one where the meta and power creep was enough that we have seen a noticeable amount of people leaving. Not a devastating amount. I mean, like maybe the revenue numbers disagree with that, but enough that we've noticed it, and particularly in top 25, where there are a handful of guilds that are like aren't at max capacity anymore. They're at 28, 27, and although you do have those sub team options, which is an excellent quality of life that the game introduced to, when you're down a member or two, you can still put teams in, so it's still fighting fairly. This was a topic that you wanted to speak to, and I'll kind of hand it over to you at this point for where you wanted to take it, but it's a good one. I completely agree with it.
Yeah, I've been trying to think of some way we could try to help this issue. I mean, it's to be honest, it's not just at the top of game. It's game wide where people have been losing friends and members of their guilds and communities. And I think it's time to try to put some effort into trying to consolidate some guilds and get people who are in dying or dead guilds. They're maybe they're just with one or two friends in there, and they kind of are just um, not wanting to leave for that fact. There are guilds that have multiple spots open. There are guilds that have multiple guilds within them that you could join at maybe a more casual level. Maybe you could be at a mid tier or a high tier level, where whatever you want to do. There's the whole Salt community that Oran J formerly was part of. There is the Beast Den, which is Final Boss and Terra Flare. There's Chocoboss, I think, has multiple guilds as well. So there's so many guilds that are looking for players right now. So I would highly advise, if you are somebody that is looking, or maybe just me talking here has made you interested. Put a note or put a comment on the video, come into the main Discord and look within the recruitment channels. There are a number of guilds out there that need people, and they have their own Discords, and you can get that additional engagement and maybe make some new friends along the way. So highly advise anybody who's interested to check that out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've done videos in the past. It's been quite some time where I wanted to always raise awareness to joining guilds and the benefits of them. And it's not really a surprise, but maybe just need a little reminder that, yeah, the social aspect of this game is a major motivator to like keeping engaged on a daily basis. If you're in a guild that has seen some outflow, maybe some decreased activity, this is definitely the time to think about pivoting and joining something that's a little more, congregated at the higher end. On the higher end of things, the level of competition I has is not the same as it used to be, and part of that is the power creep of the game. Part of that is people not sweating as hard and spending hours in their entire day mocking. But I think top 25 is a lot more welcoming than it used to be, even top 50, whatever number it may be. The game is not nearly as sweaty and competitive at that like top higher end that it used to be. That even if you're questioning if your account is strong enough, I still think it's worth going for. I don't think it takes a lot to still be relatively competitive in that space, but the upsides are enormous where you actually, to me, this game always feels good when you feel like what you're doing matters. And if you're in a guild where no one cares, no one's talking, who cares whether you swing and stump or don't swing at all, whatever it may be, then obviously you don't really get that fulfillment and return on all this time and effort and maybe money that you spent on building these units. But when you go to a guild and all of a sudden you have like people theory crafting together and people putting out builds that maybe you're in a rut, maybe like the game stinks for you the last 2 weeks, and this happened to me like a month ago. Like JB was putting out these teams. I'm like, dude, I just have to take your team because nothing I'm doing is working. These guilds offer those kinds of opportunities to kind of bring back some of those feel goods, of the results. So highly recommend pivoting if you're at that spot in a guild. Guilds are looking for you. Your game experience is going to be better. It's going to be a lot more fun. Really, all positives, quite frankly.
Yeah, honestly, this game is nothing without us, the community. So, take advantage of it. We have a lot of great guilds out there. Unfortunately, our guild Howl is full, so I'm not doing this for our guilds. We're not going to be able to get you in anytime soon. But like I said, there's been people who have reached out to me, kind of looking for help, and I know of a number of guilds. We've seen them on weekly basis that are down members and are posting in the main cord and looking for people actively. So I can't recommend enough to take advantage of it for all the reasons that you said.
Right on. And that basically concludes everything we wanted. I think we're looking forward to a news announcement, if not tomorrow, probably the day after or the day after that. I'm personally looking forward to it just to see if they announced any winners of guild raids, if they announced any winners for who knows what or new stuff. But we will pause here to let the Q&A open up. I don't think I've seen too many questions in the chat so far that we didn't address at the time. But right now, yeah, feel free to any question you want about anything in the game. Doesn't have to be related to what we talked about tonight, but while we kill some time, let those questions fill in here. The Trials of Monoclap, JB, what's your pull plan at the moment in terms of like units and shards? We've talked about this, but I don't think we've talked about it on the podcast.
Uh, I would like to get Angela. I think if I get hosed on Angela, I'm gonna probably have to skip Wizard, Crimson Wizard. I'd like to get them both, just because they're both excellent, like PVE, like guild raid units, and I still like that mode, even though we only get it 2 or 3 times a year. Um, so I would like to have them both because they are excellent chainers. Not to mention, being nice, pretty nice pieces for their respective teams, but it's going to come down to, if I have to pity another unit, that I'm just going to need to make some hard choices.
Same.
So
Yeah.
how about you? Are you mentioned you were pretty excited about Angela, so you're thinking about going for her?
I am. So my thing for me is really just waiting for the pack ages to refresh, where I do want to get that, those 3 bundles. The paid viz there is going to help me decide a lot on who I can insta pull, depending. Because my thing is always the vision cards first. I want to get those hollow vision cards. Whatever I have after that, then I can decide. But I really want those pieces. They obviously have shown time and time again, like how future proof a lot of those cards are. So that's my angle. Duran, I'm not going to build to max, only build for Mind Spheres. Angela's a maybe. I might even wait on pulling her till Crimson Wizard though, because to me, Angela's like fun copium, but Crimson Wizard I actually see use with subtly, who I'll likely go for. So if I'm really being strategic, he's probably the one I'm getting more bang for my buck. But we got enough time. We'll see what happens. But we are getting some questions here now, so I'll go through them one by one. First question here: is Justin still working as our community manager from Connorman? The answer is yes. He's working quite actively. I speak with Justin relatively frequently. I know he's been looking to get more involved in some of the public communication. He's in the Discord. He does chat with people. Hopefully he can come out with some fun news in the near term future here. I have positive hopes that the work that he's doing behind the scenes is starting to yield some fruit. I would hope to see something, even if we're not getting the Hiroki live stream like we normally are. I do know that that team here is still working. They're just a lot of like corporate logistics they're getting through at the moment. But Justin's doing some good work. I would be very optimistic if I were you guys. But yeah,
Still holding hope that we might see a live stream for this collaboration because we've talked about it before. The last one we did see was for Final Fantasy VII, and that was back in end of May. So it would be nice to see them again. If not, give us the gift at least.
right.
I think a lot of people are, that's their main worry because a lot of people kind of relied on the materials and the bump in Visior and stuff like that to be able to get through some of these events.
Totally. I think the next one here I'm seeing is from Pierre. Do you think there'll be a welcome back campaign for the Mana collab? I mean, I hope so. I think these collabs are the best time to do those, where people, even if I mean, people get drawn to collabs no matter what, and if something catches their eye, even just like for non newcomers, us as veteran players, the more often they can do those campaigns, and collabs are like quarterly. I feel like that's a good frequency to do these kind of things for even the average player. That I'm looking forward to something like that. Yeah. Um.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. Real quickly
And I
here.
just want to say,
Oh,
like, in
good.
terms of the welcome back campaign, I was just trying to gather my thoughts. I think I do remember seeing that in JP, thinking back to like a month ago. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that that was a thing. So
All right, fingers crossed. Andorius asked, "Do you think Glove will finally have a stake in the meta? They failed with Roy and Kefka." I won't disagree with the latter half of that sentence. That was unfortunate. I mean, it was fine, but it was certainly not the hopes that we had. I made a video on this about Glove meta. I think they'll have a stake. I don't think they'll be the de facto team, but I think Sadali makes a real good case here that they have some good stuff lining up for what they bring. That I see them being one of the rock paper scissors. Maybe not the best one, but definitely more than last year's where it didn't come to fruition at all. Really
yeah, I mean, they're getting multiple vision cards and two 100 cost units that are both coming the same week. So I mean, whether they're like top of the meta charts, I'm skeptical about that, but I think at a minimum, they're going to be very competitive and should be able to beat a lot of what's out there.
great. VJ asks, and we kind of answered this last week, I think. Umber did a video on the 5th anniversary, and if we had any predictions or suggestions to get the game back for hype. I can't remember what I said last week, but whatever it was, I remember feeling confident. I think it's a tough spot because anything they do is going to have an element of payment attached to it. Power creep always does. My hope is that it's at a cost that's more friendly to minnows than it is for whales, and that I hope that's their angle, that they don't price gouge the whales, but instead do something that has some good power creep with it, but is more accessible to the average person. That Gumi still has to make their money at the end of the day, but hopefully people feel fine throwing in $5 at something as opposed to $100 at something. Like that's kind of my hope. But that's a big topic for sure. I don't know about yourself.
For me, like when it comes to power creep, you hope that when they introduce something new, it's to sort of keep the status quo and not just stack on top of all the other power creep and cost increases that have come before it. Generally when, in other games I've seen, when they introduce like a new level of power creep that costs more, the previous year's power creep, like reincarnation, for example, maybe that comes way down in cost, but now we're paying a lot more for hollow vision cards. Um, it's not just continually building up so the game is just more and more expensive and it becomes untenable for everyone. So hopefully there is some give and take there where, if level 160 is coming, they give us the house on reincarnation and they give in on hollow vision cards because they know a lot of people are going to be rushing to like level up their units and they'll make their money back that way. So from the power creep standpoint, that's what I want to see. Obviously, we talked about this last week, but Final Fantasy Tactics is on everyone's list. and some adjustment to older units as well.
Agreed. Agreed. And some more good questions here. Chris asks, do you think the kits of the first wave of 100 cost units are the baseline for new 80 and 90 cost units? Because Light Lilith seems to be in that vein. I'll add one more. Sunil has 4th anniversary levels of luck as well. I would agree. The base stats of the units in the game are absolutely higher. I think we have enough proof there with Sunil and Lilith that they're definitely higher. uh, I'm okay with that. I don't know if I have a deeper answer in that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's really any huge discernible difference in the stats, when it comes to like Lilith versus
No,
Seifer. Like her stats are competitive with all of those units.
I was
I
shocked.
think it's probably more so like in the buffs and the kit where they've differentiated them rather than the statistics themselves.
Agreed. Alicia's asks roughly how much free Visior is accessible this month over the past couple days. Seems like it's gone down, but it seems more generous. This is a good question. I'll be honest. I've never done a huge deep dive on it because I've always been a paying member, so I've never tracked my free viz because like whatever it is. I just spend within my means and track what I can. But they've been on a pretty good run of 300 viz a day. That's roughly like what 9k viz a month. They've done a couple other things to throw some viz in there in terms of like the 26th anniversary thing that's going on right now. Obviously, like the guild raffle that's going on is another 1,000. The arena once a week, depending on your placement, you can get anywhere from 1,000 viz to upwards of whatever it might be. So I don't know the true total of free viz per month, but if I were ballparking, I might go 15 to 20. Because every time you complete a stage too, you get 50 viz per clearing the stage. So like if you do your multis, there's like 150 there. Clearing new stage. Am I way off? Am I missing sources of that or no?
I mean, there's a bunch, like not in addition to like the story and the events, like there's all the missions that are tied into them. Like we're now getting, I think, 450 viz like for completing like the brutal and
That's what I meant. Yeah, right.
EX missions every week. Then there's like another 200 or 250 for the multi versions of that when those stages come through. I think this is going to be above average month because we do have that 26 million downloads campaign happening. So I don't know. I think like in the past, it's traditionally been anywhere from like 20 to 30,000, like
Oh,
depending
okay.
on your placement in arena. I haven't calculated it any time in the last year though, so I don't know how much it's changed, but I'm assuming that it's probably in the same ballpark.
Yeah. We'll get through a couple more here because we are getting long into the hour, but these are honestly awesome questions. We appreciate these. Xeno Warrior Prince asked a good one. What would be your number one pick for a tactics character? Who would you want to see? What element would they want to be? I think we've talked about this, but it's been some time. I will say before we get everyone's hopes up, we've got confirmations that they're likely not introducing a new character. So this is purely copium and theorycraft for whatever we say right now. But I think we've tended to agree in the past, but maybe your opinion's changed. What's your favorite tactics character to be added, and what element would you want them to be?
Um, I want so bad for them for Ramza and Deleted to be back, so I would take like the the costume change version, mercenary and Ramza King Delita, because at this point, like 80 cost units, it's just not going to happen for the no matter what upgrades. I just can't see them sticking around that long, if at all. So I would love to see them back. Aside from those two, I would like to see. Mm, I don't know. I like Miliadul as kind of a cool character. Oron, which Orlando's son, I think, or whatever would be cool. There's so many cool characters. Ultima would be an awesome villain, to
Ultima
have
would
in
be a
there.
good one. Ultima's a good one. Wheatgriff is
Yeah,
my de facto favorite. I think he's the best villain in like all of Final Fantasy. He would likely be fired, but we've got too much fire, so maybe go dark instead and give Slave for someone to play with. But you have good options
yeah.
too. I like those. The other one I was thinking of was oh shit, I just had him. Oh, Ovelia, the princess. We have enough healers at the moment, but Ovelia is like a main character too. That could be an interesting way to throw her in there. Considering we
Hmm.
already have Agrius, like she already fits in with the cast that exists.
Love it.
A couple other good questions here. You know what? That might be it. Some good comments, but I don't know if I see any questions. Anything I'm missing here question wise, or you think that's it?
Um, I noticed Elazul commenting about like people taking a break to get
Hmm.
like the comeback bonuses. I know that they have been doing something over in JP that they just introduced in terms of like a like daily reward that you can get, which like after like a period, I want to say it's like maybe 30 days or 60 days, something like that. You can basically select vision, like a vision card. So I think it's like a way to sort of combat some of those things that have been going on with like the comeback bonuses. It's probably overdue at this point, but I'm glad that they're at least looking at it and making some adjustments there. Hopefully, we'll be getting that sometime soon over here.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't know the specifics, but it was very promising that it was a more consistent way for people to acquire vision cards and I think units as well in
Yeah,
the future. That there should be something like that. There's so many units right now. There's so many vision cards that I really don't think it's going to skew the balance of the game to give out some extra freebies. And if anything, it's going to help people pull. I think that's the biggest thing. Okay, so someone gets a vision card that 2 months later, if that means that they can pull Angela now because they got a vision card they were holding out on, that's still a net win for the game. Like I don't think that hurts. Obviously, generates a lot of goodwill, and yeah, I hate the fact that it came down to people leaving for weeks at a time. I think that's just it's one of those things like, well, don't even play the game if you're not going to play the game. If you're just going to play it 2 weeks a month, like just go do something
yeah.
else. Do you know what I mean?
I think on that same note, just one last kind of point of feedback for the developers. I think another thing that a lot of people are looking for, and something that honestly I think might even bring a few players back, would be a modernized pity system, like kind of competitive with other gotchas out on the market, where you could have like a wish system for certain units or vision cards, or
Yes.
you could have a pity that carried over, like is so common in other gotchas. Why don't we bring that into War of the Visions and maybe give something a little bit player friendly, for this anniversary?
Completely agreed. Right, overhauling the gotcha mechanic even just a little bit would help a lot. And because someone actually mentioned this before, I didn't bring this up. The permanent pool list of units at the moment is so large that if you miss a unit's featured banner, the odds of pulling them off banner later just get smaller and smaller and smaller by the nature that there's a 200 or 150 permanent pool units. The increased like wish list, I know Nikkei does that, where you can pick 5 units and they get increased chance to summon if you get your goal. So it's still not a guarantee, but it feels good that you have some agency on like helping the odds just a little bit. That over time, as you summon, that should make a difference. Again, it's not going to change the balance. Once you've pulled a unit, that's just the beginning, baby. You still got to go to 99, still need the mind sphere, still need the stuff. So, like, that's why I'm like, I don't know why they gatekeep some of that in terms of like the cost to acquire, because there's still so much that you have to do after that. And that's even assuming that you have the other things to use them in a team, as you mentioned. Okay, you pulled this unit. Do you even have the vision cards to run them? Do you have the limited unit that ran? Did you pull the Orochi Esper for the curse res? Like, there's so many other things that like I can't imagine it hurting them to just be a little more liberal.
It's like a perception thing too. Like when you're trying to entice new players, they've all played other gotchas, or the majority of them have played a lot other gotchas out there. And the fact is that the War of the Visions and Final Fantasy Brave Exvius before it, the gotcha system is of 10 years ago. So it would be nice to kind of modernize that and make it a little bit better.
Absolutely, but I do think we'll cut it there because we are at that hour and a half mark. But that was an amazing podcast. Lots to cover. There's lots to look forward to. I'll be honest, because I really mean this. We are starting to see the meta open up a bit. It's still pretty, solid, and that Sephiroth and Shrek is really not going anywhere. I can bet my bottom dollar that Summer Resnick is definitely not going anywhere. So like, there are some like cornerstone pieces that it's not going to just flip overnight. But I think the game is going to feel like you have a lot more agency than you did, and even if you can't use all those units from last year, the list of pool from the units this year, 6 to 7 months down the line now, is getting larger. That I think you're getting more variations of things that work. And once Curse is gone, then the floodgates open because we now have Resnick and Lucille and White Lotus Fina who can like rainbow the shit out of a bunch of different teams. And I think people can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
But
definitely looking forward to knocking Sephiroth off his pedestal here as we go forward.
Absolutely. But that's it for now. Thanks for being here, everybody. Appreciate all the feedback and questions and whatnot in the chat. Love to see you guys here every Monday when we're here, and we'll hopefully see you next Monday with some new extra updates as well. But good luck polling for those that are, and we'll